Hi, I'm William Malik with your bit of security for July 31st, 2024. Today we're going to talk about an interesting problem, which is that LLMs sometimes hallucinate. I'd like to talk about why that might be. And I'd like to begin by suggesting, as I saw in an article just last week, that in fact LLMs hallucinate all of the time. It's just that most of the time, their output falls within the bounds of what we can expect and consider appropriate, and therefore it doesn't bother us. Now, let me delve into that a little bit more. Imagine, if you will, a language that only had, say, 800 words. Now, those of you who've studied linguistics will know I'm talking about basic English. You can say most of what needs to be said in a plain, literal, somewhat boring way using a vocabulary of 800 words in the English language. Now imagine you took an LLM and analyzed some of the sentences that can be constructed using those 800 words. What an LLM is going to do is it's going to determine the frequency with which the various words in those sentences occur, and then give them a probability. So if you see this word, then the next word will be that. Now, having done that, it will then generate a bunch of sentences that conform to our expectations, that is, that reflect the probability that if I have this word here, the next one will be that word there. So after a while, you get a bunch of sentences. Now, is there anything in that process that suggests anything like thinking? Is there anything in there that says anything like reasoning or a search for meaning? Well, obviously not. We're just playing a statistical game. Now, consider what happens, and here's where we get into the security problem. If you take the output of that LLM and dump it into the training set. So now you have a bigger training set that has the sentences that were written by people, and then you have another group of sentences that were constructed based on the likelihood that this word follows that word. Now feed that as input to another LLM. What's going to happen is it's going to amplify the likelihood that this word is followed by that word. Now, if you do this a few times, eventually your LLM is going to generate one sentence, which is the most likely sentence you can construct out of that population of 800 words based on this process of distillation, or maybe I should say boiling off the less popular strings of words. So you see, eventually, we end up with nothing. Now let's take it down a level. Imagine instead of doing a frequency distribution on words in a sentence, you do a frequency distribution on letters in a word. Well, we don't have to imagine that because it's already been done. Cryptographers have been using analyses of the frequencies of letters and the sequences of letters for a century or more to help decrypt text that's been masked with a substitution algorithm. If you have a letter S, which is one of the 5 most popular letters, and all of you Wordle folks know what I mean, then the letter that follows it is probably going to either be a T or an H, most often. Might be a vowel. But if you apply an LLM-like process against all of the short words in the English language, you will come up with a frequency distribution which will tell you, given this letter, then that is the most likely letter that follows it. And again, if you dump the output of that into there, not scrubbing for words that are meaningless, because we're not talking about meaning, we're just talking about distributions of symbols, you will eventually boil this down to the one perfect word. Now, there was a story written in 1938 called Ertnog that I recorded about that by E.B. White that actually discussed the reason that this would come about. The point is that when I go through this process of coming up with the most likely word, there's nothing in there that sounds anything like thinking. There's nothing in there that develops anything like meaning. Knowing you have the one perfect word doesn't solve any problems, doesn't improve your strategy. It merely answers a question. In this language, what are the most frequent letters? Now, here's the twist. Over time, our meanings change. My kids say, I'll call you in a minute, meaning it'll be a long time before I'll call you. Whereas when I was young, I'd tell my folks just a minute, meaning I'll be there as soon as I can. My uncle, who was a beatnik, used to say things were like hot, man. And then it morphed into cool. Somebody asked, why do you kids call cool the things that we called hot? And the answer from the kid was, well, you used up the word hot before we got here. Language is constantly changing. And LLM's training sets don't come with use by dates on their contents. They don't come with first minted dates on the sentences they make up. So not only are we losing meaning, but we're also losing the shift in meaning as you go forward in time. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein suggested that when we use language, we are playing a game with each other. And the extent to which we agree that the ideas our words invoke agree, then we are actually having a productive, meaningful game. The point is, asking a computer to play this game won't improve our scores, and the computer ain't going to get smarter either. So my message is, before you go too far over the top with LLMs looking for meaning, take a minute and see if you're getting all hot about something that's just too cool for words. And that's our bit of security for July 31, 2024. I'm Bill Malik. Be safe out there. And you know what I mean.